So I have two children. My daughter is 26 years old. My son is 21 years old. I remember sharing in the school to a group of parents one time, and I told them I have two children. So at the end, after the Q&A and everything, one father came up to me and said, "Hey, Jason, I thought you said you have two children, but just now at the beginning, you show your family photo. I saw three children, no?" So of course, I say, no, 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 that's my wife. That's not my child in the center next to me. And so I came home, I told my wife about it, and she kept smiling for the rest of the night. Actually, it's quite easy to make your wife smile, right? Yeah. So anyway, I have two children, not three, and 26, 21. Okay, now let's look at this photo. I like this photo because this photo was just taken some years ago when Crew, Campus Crusade, in the run-up to the Christmas period, which is like around this time, right, November, running up to Christmas, and they were doing a Christmas magazine, and they want to highlight families. So I was one of the families that they came to interview, and of course they wanted to take photo, family photo, and the photographer just make us do all the funny pose and say, "Hey, you have a guitar, SpongeBob SquarePants guitar, can you hang on to it and then take photo? And then why don't you look at each other, mommy and daddy look at each other. Hey, these children, why don't you look at mommy and daddy, And of course, years later, when I look at it again, I realized, wow, it's turning hearts of parents to the children, turning hearts of children to the parents, and of course, husband and wife turning our hearts towards each other. Now, it's so important, right? Because when the hearts are turned towards each other, and that's where there is unity, there is relationship, right? There's love, there is warmth. But what if hearts are turned away? Right? What if hearts of father are turned away, or even mom turned away, or husband and wife turn away from each other? After a while, the child will start to turn away, start to withdraw. And after a while, the child will also turn away. And worse is that when hearts are turned against, right? Abuse, shouting, harsh parenting, and then the hearts of children will also be turned against. Well, the title for tonight's talk is Turning Hearts of Children to Their Fathers, towards. And I guess sometimes children's hearts are not turned towards because hearts of fathers have been turned away, or hearts of fathers have been turned against. And over time, it is quite difficult for the children's heart to be turned towards, right? Because they have already also turned away. Maybe now you go to the chat box again, type out what are the reasons that that hearts of fathers are being turned away from their children or turned against their children. What are some reasons you can think of? If you look around the world, you look around your friends, even maybe in your own family, hearts are turned away, or hearts are turned against, The hearts of fathers have been turned away or turned against. Anyone? Just feel free to type in what might be the reason. Television is everyone. Turn towards the television instead of turning towards the children. Okay, lack of communication. Yeah. Busyness. Yeah, busy with the work. We are turn towards our work, turn towards our iPhone, turn towards our computer. We are our hobby. How many Liverpool fans here? How many Man U fans here? Turn towards golf. Okay, those of you who can play golf. Impatience, anger, then you're turned against, right? Because once daddy is angry, once daddy is impatient, then the child will turn away, right? What else? In my own experience, I spent many years in the prison. So, so years in the prison as a prison officer, not as a prisoner. And most of the time when I hear their stories, they are turned away. Their parents turn away from them, their fathers turn away from them. Now they turn away from their own children, turn towards drugs, turn towards gangs, turn towards, all the vices and all the bad things and all the wrong things. Yeah, lack of effort to connect. Yeah, sometimes we're so tired, we're so preoccupied with ourselves, we have no energy to even connect or turn towards. So hopefully tonight, even as I continue to share, you may pick up some tips to help us to turn towards our children so that our children can turn towards us, right? Well, this is a handsome photo. This was taken more than 10 years ago when I was still in the prisons. This is probably 2007. Yeah. So I held the rank of Deputy Director, Deputy Commissioner, Chief of Staff, and I went over to MSF. I spent 6 years there looking after rehabilitation and protection, which is basically the youth at risk, probationers, protect children who have been abused, abandoned. neglected. The foster care service was under me for those 6 years. And I remember, even way back in prisons, I was very curious, about the tattoos on their bodies, right? What is it? Dragon? Is it tiger? Is it Salaka or 24 or Sarajambo or Omega? All the gangs. What tattoo belong to which gang? And then got interested in where they get their drugs, where they hide their guns. But after a while, got bored with that. After a few weeks, or even then, started to talk to them about their families, talk to them about their childhood, and invariably, very sad stories. They'll tell me about their mom, their dad, and most of the times their dad. And their dads have been turned away from them. The dads have turned against them. And after a while, they mix around with gangs, friends. There's the sense of belonging. I mean, if they can't find warmth at home, they can't find love at home, they will have to look for love somewhere. All of us need love. If I can't find it at home, I will look for it at all the wrong places. And that's where they get into trouble. And actually, at the time, just listening to their stories, I wasn't even married yet. I wasn't even a father yet. But just listening to their stories, I realized that, wow, if I ever become a father, I must make sure I'm there for my children. I'm very intentional in doing my job as a father. Yeah, they say like, core business and non-core business. You never outsource the core business, right? You can outsource the non-core business. So at home, our core business is being a father, being a mother, right? Being a husband, being a wife. And that's not something we can outsource. Now, I'm going to just share in the next 45 minutes or so, 40 minutes or so, several lessons for fathers. I'm sure moms can take it and use it as well. Why 7? Well, because if I keep talking, then we'll not end on time, right? So I just share with you some of these lessons that have been helpful for me, which I personally have used and have been helpful. And over the years, I've been sharing with other parents. Now, if you have heard me share in other parenting platforms, some of these you may have heard before. But again, it's not so much whether you have heard it before, it's whether you have applied it. Right? I know a pastor many years ago, he said, it's not whether how many times we have gone through the Bible. It is how many times the Bible had gone through us. We can read the Bible many times, but whether the Bible has gone through us. So similarly, when we hear of such parenting tips or useful advice, question is, have we allowed it to be part of us? Are we using it on a day-to-day basis? Yeah, so hope that out of the 7, you will pick up 1 or 2 and use it. The first one, very important. I mean, be aware of what research says. I remember years ago, if you ask me, where do my mom learn her parenting skills from? Where do our parents learn their parenting skills from? Probably they not nowhere. But if you ask me, my mom probably learned it from the wet market, right? Early in the morning, she'll go to the wet market. Somehow by the afternoon, she will talk to you about some things. And it's like, she just talked to all the mothers at the wet market, come back, suddenly there is some new knowledge that she gained. But we don't need to do that. Nowadays, there's proper research, evidence-based, and of course, the Bible has many Bible verses. That's something that we can read up, and pastors teach that, every now and then. But I don't want to go to research. One thing I've learned is whatever the Bible say, you will find the research to back it up. The Bible cannot lie. The truth cannot be wrong. You will always find the research to back it up. So when I present you research, the research basically backs up what the Bible tells us about fathering, about parenting, or whatnot. Let's look at some research. This is a summary slide, so you just later I will elaborate on each of these, but if you look at this, there are 3 portions, right? The cognitive, which is the brain, the mind, the intellectual. So if fathers involve positively with their children have higher IQ. Now, I know some of you have older children already, maybe it doesn't apply to you anymore, it's too late. But maybe you pick it up and for your grandchildren, right? But I also noticed just now in the chat box, many of you still have young children. And of course, some of us are in ministries like children ministry, in the church, etc. We may be mentoring parents, and this is where we can give them advice. Fathers involved with our children actually have higher IQ, better linguistic ability, higher academic readiness, higher academic achievement. So in every aspect, cognitively, children do better when the fathers are there for them. Social emotional, which is the heart, which is the soul, right? Children are better able to cope. They can cope better if the fathers are there. Moral maturity, they know what is right, what is wrong, what is good, what is bad. Pro-social behaviors, that means they can make friends. They are comfortable with people. Secure attachment, they feel very secure. Do you know that when I was overseeing the children's homes, there are children who have been abused that are very insecure. You know why? Because or parents children that grow up in very dysfunctional family because they move from house to house. You know, their own parents didn't look after them, abused them, so they're very fearful of adults. They cannot trust adults. And then they move from foster care to foster care, and sometimes because they are acting out, right, then the adult caregivers don't know how to look after them, and then they change caregiver again. And after a while, there are so many adult figures in their lives, they are not able to attach securely to an adult figure. And I remember one time there's this child finally ended up in the children's home. And what we have to do is that we have to pay for one dedicated staff to spend time with this child, to just, because if you have a lot of staff walking around, the child will feel very insecure. You need a stable person with the child. And guess what? Whenever this staff walk away out of sight, maybe go toilet or whatever, the child will scream. It's like suddenly the whole world collapses. It's like the only person I can trust disappear again, you know. So when fathers are there for children, our child has secure attachment, and that is very important. The security, yeah, social competence, right? Able to interact with people, stable family, which means if fathers are involved with the children, children grow up in future having their own stable family. So I always advise parents, fathers, especially when we father our children well, we are actually fathering our grandchildren. We are indirectly raising our grandchildren by raising our own children well. And on the right side, at-risk behavior. So lower rates of delinquency, lower rates of substance abuse and stealing, less truancy. You know, whenever I talk to principals last time, you know what they say? You know, if only the fathers are involved, because somehow whenever the fathers are not there, the children misbehave, usually, especially when they become teenagers in the school. And usually the principal will say, once fathers are more involved, the students behave better. And I remember one time a principal said, you know what she did with the young men, especially the teenage boys whom they can't control? They advised them to join Boys Brigade. So I said, oh, why Boys Brigade? You know, I thought it's the discipline, the uniform, right? How they teach values. So one time I was invited to Boys Brigade. They were in Johor, so I was invited to go there to speak to the officers' conference, the leadership conference. So I have to drive all the way there just to speak for an hour or so. But I stay back and then have supper with the leadership and talk to them. So I asked the leadership the question, the council, the committee. I said, you know that, this principal said this, no? She said that whenever they have difficult, delinquent young boys, she was sent to the Boys Brigade. So I look at them, I say, what is your secret? What is your secret? And they look back at me and say, oh, our secret is love. We just love them. I said, wow. I was thinking they'll say discipline, the marching, the uniform, the values, the impartation, the memorizing all the Bible verses. No, the answer is we just love them, which makes a lot of sense. They become the father figures at home. These officers, become the father figures, become the mentors that these young boys never had in their own family. Now, let's break it down, on the cognitive side, the intellectual side. In UK, father's involvement for children at the age of 7 was found to be significantly associated with educational attainment at age 20. That means you follow them all the way to 20 years old. You start watching them from 7, whether fathers are involved or fathers are not involved, and then you track them all the way up to 20. And it proves that those whose fathers are involved achieve better educational results. And of course, even in Singapore, when we did our own research, we found that good fathering was associated with adolescents' positive school engagement and higher academic achievement. And on the social emotional side, father involvement was significantly related to self-reported happiness and life satisfaction. No, we talk about mental health nowadays. One solution actually is for parents to be there for the children, to be more involved, positively involved, fathers included, right? And below it says fathers have a buffering effect in protecting boys from extreme victimization. That means bullying. Victimization means bullying, and daughters have less psychological distress, which means when fathers are involved with boys, boys are less likely to be bullied. When fathers are involved with daughters, daughters are less likely to think that they are not good enough. Girls, when they grow up, it's like I'm too fat, too tall, too short, too ugly, too skinny. It's never enough, right? Because of, especially with social media nowadays. But can you imagine the fathers look at the daughter and say, "Your daddy's precious girl, you are beautiful, daddy loves you." It's like you are enough, you are enough, you are beautiful in daddy's sight. And when the daughter feel love and affirm, the daughter will not need to look for love and affirmation from other boys, right? In fact, research has shown that when fathers are involved with the daughters, in fact, it was John Hopkins. They discovered that the menstruation cycle of girls will be delayed by 1-2 years. It's interesting. When fathers are involved with the daughters, daughters will start menstruating 1-2 years later, which means that they will not be sexualized so early. They will not be, all the hormones will not be running so early. Then that will delay their falling in love with other boys, right? And for boys, bullying, let me tell you a story. I remember my son, one time he was in primary school, he came back, he said, he got bullied by a boy in the school bus. So the next day, I decided that I will finish work early. I just wait for the school bus to come. And of course, the school bus came, and then I told the bus driver, wait, don't go first. And then my son came down. And then I asked my son, who is the boy you told me about? I say this in front of some of the boys seated inside the bus looking out, or who is this father stopping the bus, And then I said, who's the boy you told me about? And then my son looked through the door, right? And pointed, there. Then I looked inside. And of course, it wasn't with an angry face. With a smiling face, I looked at the boy. Of course, the boy was like shaking, right, in his pants. And the boy looked at me, and then I look at him, I smile, I say, oh, so you are the friend that my son told me about. Oh, so you're a friend, right? Be a friend, okay? Continue to be friends, okay? And then the boy said, okay. After that, problem solved, right? Just because daddy showed up, all these problems are solved. In fact, I think that recently there was a video being circulated. I think it's some US, one of the high school. There was some gang clash, violence, a few dads just show up in the school and no more violence, just because dads show up, right? And here it says children have less behavioral problems, such as stealing, truancy, running away, defiance. Yeah. In the longitudinal study, looking at boys aged 7 to 16, boys with involved fathers were less likely to get into trouble with the police. So it's very true. In the US, this video clip proved it is being circulated around, when the fathers show up in the school, the young people behave better. Now, the reverse is also true. So positive involvement, positive outcome. But if it is negative involvement, you will get negative outcome. So here it shows when fathers engage in high levels of antisocial behaviors, their children have more conduct problems. And when fathers engage in harsh parenting, children exhibited more aggression and delinquency. Now, let me share with you a real story. I was in the prisons and one time I was a volunteer. For a few years, I was a volunteer. Weekdays, I wear the uniform. On the Sunday, I go in to help out at the chapel service as a prison volunteer. And so I will conduct Bible study, I will preach, I will sit down on the floor with them. And one time, there was this prisoner, he belonged to we call it the criminal law detainee, a secret society gang member. He was a fighter. So basically what it means is whenever there's a gang clash, he will be the first to charge in front, take barang, pick knife, he will go and chop. In fact, he told us that, I asked him, I said, wow, you're so brave. Actually, I was like, you're so aggressive. Where did the aggression come from? But I asked in a nice way, like, wow, you're so brave. Where do you get your courage from? And then he said, wow, sir, I go Bangkok, I went to this temple, I look at this monk, and then he said this monk actually advised him, you go to the cave, nearby cave, there was this other monk who just died, just died on the same day, haven't buried yet, the body is still lying inside the cave. And the monk asked him, you go there and lie next to him and draw strength from him. And then he has all the the funny, tattoos and all the talisman, the needle, put the talisman inside and poke into his body, all sorts of things he will go for, so that he has this invincible kind of thinking, which is all false, right? Because I asked him, hey, you sure or not? Barang chop you doesn't go in, is it? He said, no, lah, sir, chop me still, of course, can still go in. But he said somehow he feel fearless. Whenever there's a gang clash, just fearless. The problem is that when he came into the prison, that aggression, that anger didn't go away. He find himself very impatient, want to fight with people. So in the end, he came to the chapel. He want to, maybe he said, maybe Jesus can help him. So he came, and when he shared with us, so as we discovered some more, he said, secondary school, he throw chair at teacher, army, he punch officer, then he joined gang, beat up everybody. I said, okay, I tell you what, why don't we pray for you? So together with another volunteer, brought him to a corner because there were other prisoners still attending the chapel. We just brought him to a corner and we started to pray. And as we were praying, I saw a picture. I saw a little boy in a room crying in a corner. And so I said, I seem to see this little boy crying in the corner. Does it mean anything to you? Wow, he started shaking, trembling, he's getting aggressive. So I said, oh dear, there's a CCTV prison officer patrolling outside. I said, no, in the name of Jesus, stop. In the name of Jesus, stop, calm down. And then he calmed down. And then, of course, then myself and the other volunteer from Prison Fellowship, we look at him and say, okay, what happened? I said, when I said that to you, what came to your mind? And he said, sir, that was me lah. When I was a little boy, my father always cane me, beat me with the belt, sometimes no reason. I would run to the room and cry in a corner. I said, oh, I see. Then I said, what happened? Then he said, I wish I could punch my dad. I wish I could beat him up, and he beat me. Then I said, do you ever do that? He said, no, I never managed to. I don't know exactly what happened, whether the dad passed away or he ran away from home. But he said, I never beat him up, but I ended up throwing chair at teacher, punching officer in the army, joined a gang and beating everybody up. Then I said, okay, I tell you what, then we gave him certain Bible verses to meditate on, and let the word of God bring healing to him. A few weeks later, one of our pastors from my previous church came along with us, and we were in small groups seated down, and this pastor just felt led to go up to him, lay hands over him, and just prayed. And then he was slain. He just banged on the floor. And of course, all the rest wondering what happened. But for me and the other volunteer, we knew what happened because of all the whatever spirit of aggression or anger inside him, right? And so when he was lying on the floor, everybody went around him and tried to get him up. And about a couple of minutes later, he got up. Then he said, something left me. I feel lighter. So I believe that all those aggression has opened the door for the evil one to hold him in bondage. Yeah. So harsh parenting can have consequences on our children, right? Sometimes it can even be spiritual. Now, there's a difference between fathering and mothering. Very often, fathers say to me, especially in the past, I think nowadays, I guess fathers do read up. In the past, fathers used to say, "Aya, no need lah. My wife can already. My wife look after my children can already. Cannot lah. Always say cannot. It's like sunlight and water, right? You cannot have more sunlight to replace the water or more water to replace the sunlight. The fact that God created man and woman, husband and wife, father and mother is meant to be complementary. Both are important, right? And so let me explain with toys and protecting children. This is our research. Mothers buy toys, right? Mothers buy toys. Fathers are the toys, right? The child go to the zoo, come back and say, mommy, buy, I want to ride on the horse. Then mommy say, yeah, tomorrow I buy you a toy horse. If the father is around, what will the father likely say? The father will likely say, I'm the horse, right? Ride on me. Nowadays, not easy to be a dad. Spider-Man, Superman, Avengers, Justice League. The rough playing, fathers are rougher, they're going to roll on the sand, on the grass. Usually the fathers do that, right? I'm not saying moms don't do that, but most of the time, fathers are more playful. And that is important for the children to learn. Protecting children. Mothers protect children differently from fathers. Mothers like to say, don't run, don't run so fast. Don't climb. Don't throw, you break something. Can you please sit down, don't move? Okay, sit down, don't move. You know what will fathers do? If fathers are around, usually the father say, run, 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 chase, chase, run faster, climb, climb, don't worry, I will catch you, go higher, go higher. Come on, you can do it, son. Throw harder, mommy not here, break something, never mind. Now, does it mean fathers take risks and not protect children? No, mothers protect children now so that the child doesn't hurt himself or herself now. Fathers protect children by preparing them for the future. The world is a scary place. We cannot be always protective, cannot do this, cannot do that, cannot climb, cannot jump, cannot. In the world, we need to take risks. So fathers protect children by preparing them for the future. Can you imagine both? Moms protect them now, fathers protect them by preparing for the future, both interacting. Sometimes we hear this, mommy's boy, mommy's boy. I mentor young men, I mentor even fathers. Mommy's boy, is it a good thing or a bad thing? It's actually not a good thing because we are overprotecting the child. We disallow the child to grow up and to take risks, to venture out. So I always advise moms, you cut the umbilical cord twice. One time is the physical cord when the child is born. First time, cut, separate the child from the mom. Second time is when the child grows up. You have to cut the second time. This is the cord of the heart, right? Don't keep hanging on to the child, refusing the child to grow up. That's why we need to cut the umbilical cord twice. And fathers are supposed to be the one to bring the child to see the world, to venture out, But to be fair to the moms, how do I cut the umbilical cord when the fathers are not there to bring the child to go out and see the world, to climb, That's why if fathers are not there, moms will say, don't climb, come down. Don't run, sit down, right? And that's not good for the child. Okay, I'm only lesson 1. Okay, I'm going to speed up already, because I think research is important. Once you get this right, then you will remind yourself, wow, research say I am important, right? Okay, let's watch this video.
Oh, this one, see? He got his A-level results.
Tell me the worst.
Oh, no, it's great news. He got what he needed.
Let me see. English A, mathematics A, physics A, chemistry A. What is this?
What?
Aha!
What, he got a B in classical studies.
He got a B?
It doesn't matter.
What do you mean it doesn't matter? Doesn't matter. My son got a B.
It's only 1.
Still, it's a B. He could have got all A's. Mr. Sinha's son got all A's. But my son had to get a B.
Mr. Sinha's son only did 2 A-levels. Our son did 5 in one sitting. He's the first in his school ever to do that.
Really?
Yes.
Then he is going to school full of idiots. How am I going to keep my head up in the community? My son got a B.
He got the grades to do medicine at Cambridge.
He's doing medicine at Cambridge?
Yes.
Idiot! He should be doing PhD.
They don't let you do a postgraduate without a degree.
I know. That's why I was telling him to do his degree in his spare time. What is wrong with him, Mr. Khanna's son is getting BSc. My son is only doing A-levels, Too busy playing football.
He got into the Millwall first team.
Millwall. Mr. Owen's son is getting into Liverpool. If my son can only get a place in Millwall, he will bring shame to the family.
But Liverpool wouldn't give him a trial.
And why is that?
Because he's 6.
Okay, so I guess like expectations. Our parents have expectations of us. We have expectations on our children. Our bosses have expectations of us. We have expectations of each other. Now, I'm not saying expectations is bad, but as you can see, sometimes expectations can be a bit overwhelming, right? So the lesson I want to share with you is practice love-based parenting, not expectations-based parenting. I want to explain this. It's very important that we learn, because sometimes if we do parenting using expectations-based, then we will turn the hearts away from each other. So love-based parenting will turn the hearts towards each other. Let me explain. with this diagram, right? On top, you can see parenting that creates fear, shame, guilt. Expectations-based parenting creates fear. Right on top is expectations, right in the top box, expectations. Then performance on the right side. So okay, imagine this is expectations. Come on, son, you can do it. Come on, jump. You can reach it. Come on, I'm sure you can. Come on. Then you have to perform, right? But then if we raise that, our expectation so high, how come you can't? How come you cannot? How come you cannot perform up to my expectations? How come your cousin can, you cannot? How come your friend can, you cannot? What's wrong with you? And guess what? At the bottom is disappointment. I am so disappointed with you. I am so disappointed with you. On the left, you can see guilt and shame. So for the child is, they will feel guilty. I make my parents disappointed with me. I'm so shameful. When I see my cousin, I'm so ashamed because he can, I cannot. And then guess what? What we'll say? Try again next month. Try again next semester. Try again next year. Expectations again. But we set it so high, then the whole cycle of performance, disappointment, guilt, and shame will come. And then in the middle is fear. I'm afraid of going to school now. I'm fearful of taking the exam. After taking the exam, I'm fearful of looking at the marks. After looking at the marks, I'm fearful of bringing the marks home to show my parents. And the whole cycle go round and round. And I think that's why the mental health of many young people are suffering. Even for adults, right? If our bosses have set very high expectations and they do not understand and we can't perform, my boss look at me and say, I'm so disappointed with you. And do you think I want to go to work? Do you think I want to see my boss? It will go cycle, and there's many people will go to depression. Let me explain further. Here, expectations-based parenting is, I expect you to make me happy, give me security or significance. It's like my happiness is depending on the marks that my children get. Can you imagine if I have 3, 4 kids? One kid get A, I'm happy. Another kid get C, I'm not so happy. And then the last kid get F, I'm unhappy. So every month I'm happy and happy. My emotions go up and down because of the marks that my children get. My ideals, my dreams are centered around you. I never become a doctor. I want one of you to become a doctor. I never, maybe one of you a doctor, the other one become a lawyer. For me, I make a mistake. I never learned how to play the piano. I want my children to learn how to play the piano. In fact, I bought the piano even before they were born. Can you imagine that? And I give you the power to make me happy or miserable. Because I treat you well, you should become what I expect. I work so hard. I sacrifice so much. How come you never, And I guess that is where the pressure will come. Okay, this is me and my daughter. Let me tell you my own story. I'm not a perfect father, but I learned along the way. That's us. And this was the day where the PSLE results was announced. So you look at the photo. Do you think happy or sad? Do you think the results good or bad? Maybe you go to the chat box. Do you think good results or bad results? Look at the smile, right? But my wife was taking the photo, by the way. Yeah. And I know that Singaporeans, we think PSLE is the most important exam in the whole world. Until our children go secondary school, then they realize, actually, no, PSLE is not the most important exam in the whole world. Yeah, in fact, pretty good results. In fact, so good that she went to the good school, went to IP. IP, that means skip O-level. Only the top 10% skip O-level. So my daughter's one of those that skip O-level. Went into IP, and that's the worst thing. Once you get the IP, all hell broke loose. She could not see the results that she used to get. She said, Dad, I studied so hard. How come I cannot get the marks? My friend never studied. How come? Then for me, I also don't know why. I'm a government scholar, Colombo plan, no? Can't be my genes, right? Maybe it's my wife's genes. After a while, when you start to think what's the problem? You start pointing out, maybe not me, maybe it's, and of course, I believe in love-based parenting. Train up a child in the way that he should go. Not train up a child in the way that I want him to go. Train up a child in the way that God wants him to go. We need to partner with God, right? And so I began to speak life into my daughter. I said, go, you're not good in biology, you're not good in chemistry, you're not good in maths. And then she looked at me, she said, Dad, I know, what are you trying to tell me? I said, but you're good with children. In the cell group, all the children run to you, right? And then you're very compassionate. Whenever your friend have problems, you say, well, they always come to you for counseling. And and you have leadership, right? You're the vice captain of your CCA. And then she felt better, she realized that she has gifting and talents. And suddenly reality sets in. She looked at me and she said that, but the school never give marks for all these things, when you're negative, when you start keep thinking negative. But how do I keep encouraging her? Yeah, the school never give marks for children. You love children, no marks, all right? But I told her these are life skills. These are life skills. In fact, JC1, she almost stayed back. Right, PSLE, she was the top 10%. JC1, she became the bottom 10%. Also don't know what happened. But again, God knows, right? God is the one that created her. God. And so she managed to scrape through. After A-levels, I sat her down and said, girl, instead of waiting for your A-level results to come out, why not you since you like children, maybe early childhood sector, lots of jobs, kindergarten, childcare centers. Then my daughter said, maybe come. So I call up, some principal that I know, St. James Kindergarten, attached there for 3-4 weeks, came back, I sat down with her, I said, how? Let's process. Early childhood sector? Then she looked at me sheepishly, she said, Dad, I love children, but too many children, cannot take it. And then of course, talk to her again. Then she said, somehow I'm drawn to that one child, the lonely one, the bullied one, the special needs one. I said, okay, not one to many, but one to one. So one to one could be child psychology, special needs, or maybe speech therapy. In the end, she went away to do speech therapy. Did very well. She no longer studied for marks. She studied hard because she wanted to help children. Her motivation was children. Since young, God had created her to enjoy children. And guess what? Now she's in a hospital, premature babies, helping premature babies to swallow, children that have problems with swallowing, with their speech, stammering, stuttering. And she will come back and say, Daddy, this baby is so cute, She will go into the incubator with the 2 hands and hold the baby. It's like she's not even married yet, And well, the lesson here is quite simple. This cartoon is lovely. For a fair selection, everybody has to take the same exam. Please climb that tree. So I'm not sure you think fair or not fair, right? You see, we know animal kingdom, everyone is different, but somehow in the human world, God also created us differently. So don't compare with each other, because when we start comparing, the hearts will turn away. We will turn away from each other. From the genius himself, I love this. Everybody is a genius. Einstein said, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid. I know of many families, including Christian families, the tension is with exam marks. The tension is with academics. I think we need to be able to see what God sees in our child. If I see my daughter as chemistry or biology, I would have missed it, but I see her playing with children. I say, wow, my daughter loves children. She is naturally gifted to work with children. So lesson 2, practice love-based parenting, not expectations-based parenting. Love-based parenting is the way God loves us. I work with prisoners. So can you imagine? Are they condemned? No. Every prisoner created in God's image is gifted differently, right? I think some of you know many powerful testimonies of ex-prisoners coming out, starting business, etc. Now, let's do an exercise. What values do you want your children to have? Okay, I give you 30 seconds to think. What values do you want your children? And if you're already grandparents or your children are much older, maybe think about what values you want your grandchildren to have, right? What values do you want your children or your grandchildren to have? Just type in the chat box, okay? Specific. Good moral values are very broad, love God, okay, loving, gentle, patience, wonderful, God-loving, integrity, okay, awesome. What else? Okay, type, kind, faithful, very good, hard work, care for others, compassion, humility, okay, wonderful. Keep typing, I'm going to show you a video as you type, and after watching the video, I explain why I asked this question and what is the answer to the question.
Looks like rain again today. Dark clouds gather and fill the sky. Don't know how to talk to you, just know how to say goodbye.
Have you actually got a driver's license? I don't think so. Did you see it back there?
Go back where you came from. Learn to speak
Go back where you came. You don't know anything to me. What's wrong with you, Harry?
Children see, children do. Right? Make our influence positive. So the lesson here is quite simple. How do we teach values? Values are caught, not taught. The best way to teach values is to model values. That means live the values that we want to teach. You know, if not, the hearts will be turned away. The hearts will. I remember one time I was involved in a youth camp. Not to worry, not from the Methodist Church. And at the end, I stayed back to do some ministry. And then one young man, 16, 17 years old, the pastor in charge said, Jason, can you pray for him? So I took him to a corner and I spoke with him. I said, how can I pray for you? Then he said, pray for me that I will not be angry with my own dad. So I said, what does your dad do? Then he said, my dad is a pastor. I was like, oh dear. Oh, I said, okay, tell me. So I was, I have to be extra serious. I said, so what actually happened? Then he said, my dad preached one thing, but at home he's a different person. So I can imagine every Sunday hearing the father preach from the word, but at home he didn't live up the word. And of course, to be fair to pastors, you preach the whole Bible. How can you live up to everything that the Bible say, right? But for a 16, 17-year-old boy, that is what he sees, right? That is what he hears, and that's what he sees. And I was trying to solve the problem in a very practical manner. I said, since like that, what maybe you don't have to be in the same church, right? Because I know of certain denominations where you don't need to be the same church as your father, and then he was very mature. He said, I have thought about it, but I didn't want to go to another church. I said, why? He said, that would be very dishonoring to my father. I said, wow. So I did pray for him, So very important, So when we say this is the value and we tell our children, this is the value I want you to have, then we need to live it out. We need to model it. And between husband and wife, I think that's the best way. We check each other. You remember last time we always have a parking coupon, we tear parking coupon, right? Then if you, let's say integrity, honesty is very important. So can you imagine husband and wife, we park the car and then look at each other and say, to tear or not to tear, only 15 minutes, right? Not half an hour. Do we tear or not to tear? Then we spend 5 minutes talking about whether to tear parking coupon or not. And our children behind listening to us, and then we tell them about integrity, right? So be very careful, okay? Okay, another simple exercise. Recollect childhood memories. So if you're a man, recollect childhood memories of your father. If you're a lady, then of your mother. Now go back as far as possible when you're a little boy, little girl. Okay, you will recall happy memories. Some of you will recall not so happy memories. So this is what I want you to do. Wherever you are, close your eyes for 30 seconds and then let the memories come back to you. Okay, everybody close your eyes. 30 seconds, let the memory come back, whether happy or not so happy. Okay, 10 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, can you go to the chat box? Happy memory? Not so happy memory? Both? How many got caning? Got caning or not? Both, neutral, okay. Happy, less happy, yes. Yeah, I guess most of us will have both. Happy. Of course, if I ask this question in the prisons to the prisoners, I think most of them will have largely unhappy memories. I guess for this group, probably mostly will be happier memories. Now, why do I do this exercise? What if 10 years from now, 20 years from now, I'm invited back for another parenting talk and I ask the same question, and this time your own children have grown up or your own children have become parents and they attend the same talk. What do you think their answers will be? Will your children have happy memories of you as their dad, as their mom? Or will your children have not so happy memories? So the lesson here is very simple. Decide today how you want your children to remember you. Decide today how you want your children to remember you. And of course, those of us with younger children, this was what I did when my children were younger. At home, right now, I can't really go out much. So do things, fun things, take photo, so that you can remember each other. And of course, for my son, he was very active, so I need to really bring him out all over the place. And I have my second childhood because things that I never do when I was young, I got a chance to do it with him. And of course, celebrate special occasions, right? Birthdays, Father's Day, Mother's Day. Now, but let me tell you, celebrating special occasions like that is very boring, right? Happy birthday, 1 year old, 1 candle, 2 year old, 2 candles, 3 year old, 3 candles, 5 candles, 10 year old, 10. How many of you remember which candle? Which birthday do you remember? The only way is to do it in a creative way, in a fun way. So what happened was that when my daughter was K2, I decided between K2 and P1, it's a big jump, so I must really do something that she will remember for the rest of her life. And this was what I did. 5 a.m. I woke up. The day before, I got a cylinder of helium gas. I got some pink balloons. 5 a.m. I got up early. I blew up the pink balloons with helium gas, floated up her room and the ceiling. I got extra balloons. And for the happy birthday banner, instead of pasting on the wall, I lifted it up with balloons. But if you want to do that, you make sure you wake up at 4 a.m. because you need a lot of balloons to lift up a happy birthday banner. So I couldn't make it in time. I said, I think my daughter's going to wake up. She's going to go kindergarten soon. And so I grabbed my maid, I grabbed my wife. I said, please help me to do this. And of course, my daughter woke up in time and she saw pink balloons on the ceiling and brought her to see the happy birthday banner. So when she was a teenager, I asked her, I said, Sarah, which birthday do you remember? She will never say this one, the 4 candle or the 5 candle or the 10 candles. She will say, Daddy, I remember this one. This one. When she was 6 years old, she will always remember this one. So when she was, I remember 17 years old, I said, Sarah, which birthday do you remember? Sarah looked at me and said, Dad, stop asking the same question. It's the same one. Then I realized that I cannot keep, just do one thing. You want this memory to last for life, So I thought to myself, maybe I need to do another one, right? And then that was what I did. Had dinner when she was 17 years old, birthday dinner, went for ice cream, and I wanted to surprise her with the ice cream cake. But before I could bring up the cake to surprise her, there was these 2 families at one corner. They shouted, surprise, happy birthday song. Then on the other side, a group of army boys, surprise, happy birthday song. So my cake was the 3rd cake. So I realized, by the time it come out, no more surprise. So I actually prayed. I said, I said, God, like that, how? I have to wait another year, And then there was when a bright idea God dropped into my head. I went over to these boys, the army boys. I told them, I said, guys, I give you permission to serenade to my daughter's 17th birthday. Can you help me bring out the cake later and sing happy birthday to her? Wow, they got so excited. They said, yes, they're going to do it. And of course, I forgot to tell them my daughter's name. So later you'll realize when they sing the happy birthday song, they couldn't shout out the name. Let's watch this.
You get a boy to get the first shout. Hey, quick. Sarah. Thank you.
Of course, now she's 26. If I ask her which birthday do you remember, she will say, Daddy, that too. The K2 as well as the 70-year-old. Now I don't surprise her anymore because it's the job of her boyfriend to create memories for her. The lesson here is this: create memories in fun and creative ways. Memories that will last forever. Memories that can help turn hearts towards each other, not unhappy memories, because unhappy memories will turn our hearts forever away from each other. You know, when my dad was about to pass away because of lung cancer a few years ago, he lasted about 2-3 months, and he stayed with me, and I have a room for him. So every night I recall he will switch on the lamp. As I walk past his room, the light will be on, and he will be looking at 2 books. One was his Bible. He'll be reading his Bible very seriously because I know he's preparing to see God. The other book, he will be looking at it, turning the pages, and then he will smile. Each time he turned the page, he will smile. And that was the photo album. And I realized that in those photos were memories. And when he came to the end of life, he must have, thought to himself that he has created happy memories together with his family. And now that he's no longer around, I look at the same photos and I will also smile because my dad has left some happy memories for me to remember him. When we come to end of life, all we have are just memories. And I pray that, we will continue to create happy memories for our families, for our children, and for our parents. Now, these are the challenges that fathers face. This was done more than 10 years ago just before I launched Dads for Life. You can see challenges that fathers face. Of course, earlier we said our fathers are turned away, because of work, and sometimes because of finances. We're so stressed. Some families have to do 2 jobs, and now with COVID, our jobs are at stake. Maybe lack of resources, knowledge, lack of know-how. Other men, do you realize that some other men don't encourage men to be involved in the family? It's like, hey, not cool, let your wife do it. But I guess society has slightly changed. But you look at the wife, 28%, which is almost 30% of the fathers say the wife is the challenge. Now, let me explain. That's called maternal gatekeeping. You heard of goat-keeping, right? But maternal gatekeeping basically is the wife trying to be helpful, not allowing the child to go to the father. I give you an example. Maybe daddy come home very tired. The mommy say, don't disturb daddy, let daddy rest. If every night like that, then the child will not have enough time with the dad, right? So that is called maternal gatekeeping. Of course, when it comes to very acrimonious relationship, the moms will say, your dad is a very bad person. Don't go to him, right? So that is separating the child from the dad. Don't do that, right? Because fathers need to be there for our children, and then mothers can be the cheerleader. I know of one mom, what she did? She bought 2 tickets, movie tickets. So I said, 2 movie tickets, you're going to with your husband. They said, no. This is for my son to go to the movie with my husband. I'm going to go shopping. So basically the mom creating opportunities for the husband to spend time with the son. Okay, I'm coming to the end soon. Let's watch this last video. You know, the world is a very scary place. The lesson here is to be there for our children. I mean, I know of many children whose parents are not there. That's why they ended up in the children's homes, in the prisons, in foster care. But we need to be there for our children, to protect them, to watch over them. You never know when they need us. You know, this is my daughter. So when she was 18, she gave me a Father's Day card. I'm really an expensive kid, not in terms of money maybe, but in terms of a lot of time. But we've always been there. Of course, to be there for our children means we need to make time, we need to be available. When I needed a friend to share things with, and wine too after floorball trainings, a shoulder to cry on after really hard days, a chauffeur to keep my rides entertaining, a food delivery man to keep my tummy happy, a clown to cheer me up, a preacher to remind me to stay close to God always, and daddy to be my pillar of strength. I look back, of course, I didn't know that, you know, all this meant so much to her, all those 18 years, but she remembered, right, that I was there for her and with her. And of course, I like this last paragraph the most. Thanks for always being at my beck and call. I know I owe you a lot. Promise I'll get that automatic wheelchair for you if you ever need one. Because I told her I don't want the hand one, I want the press button one. That she remembered. And now, what if our dad was not there for us? What if the hearts have been turned away already? And I remember when I was mentoring a young man a few years ago, he was going on and on. You know, whenever he talked about his dad, he would be so angry. He would be, you know, only negative words. So after a few times meeting him, I don't even know what to say to him anymore. And so I asked God for wisdom, and that was when God dropped me a question to ask him. So I asked, do you know how your dad was fathered by his father? Meaning, do you know how your grandfather treated your father? And this young man just stopped complaining. And he said, my grandfather was even worse than my father. And immediately, what came out from my mouth was this: we cannot give what we have not received. You know, if I receive love, I can give love. If I receive love from my parents, I can pass down love to my own children. But if I receive pain, I receive rejection, I may have no choice but to pass down this pain and rejection to my own children. And that's why for us, sometimes we get angry with our own parents, or we think that our parents are not being there for us. But that's partly because they never received the love themselves. They didn't know how to. In those days, they don't even have parenting talks like that, right? And the verse which I love a lot is this: we love because he first loved us. So for us who are Christians, we have the love of God, our Abba Father. And if we receive this love from God, maybe we can pass this love to our children, to our spouse, and even pass some to our own parents. Even if our own parents never pass it to us, we can pass some back to them because we receive this love directly from God the Father. I need to share with you this testimony because it's a very powerful testimony. Even older men like us, we also need to turn our hearts to our own father, our own parents. Let me tell you a story of Frank on the right side. You know, it's from my church now. And, you know, we're always wanting to teach fathers to turn our hearts to our children, but we forget that we, as fathers, we also need to turn our hearts back to our own parents, our own fathers. And so one day, he told me that he actually wanted to join me to go Miri because 2 years ago, before COVID hit, I was invited by 2 Methodist churches in Miri to help them start the fathers movement, to start Elijah 7000. So I asked this group of fathers, anyone want to join me to help me to come and observe and learn? And so Frank said, Jason, I'll come along. You know, I want to come and watch and learn and help you. So he took leave, he came with me. And at the airport in Changi, he told me, actually, I have another reason why I'm following you. I said, what's the reason? Then he said, I'm going there to look for my long lost father. Frank is 40 years old. He said the father is 70 years old already, and the father left him when he was 14 years old. Left the mom, divorced, and went away overseas, and then ended up in Miri, settled down there with another family. So Frank knew that he needed to turn his heart back to his own father. And so I said, let's do that, let's go, you know. And then I said, do you manage to contact your father? He said, I messaged him, I found his number, but just no reply. Then I prayed with him. I said, let's see what happens over the weekend. So when we landed at Miri Airport, on the way out of the customs gate, I said that it's going to be a driver from the church who's going to come and fetch us. Let's look out for the driver. So when the custom gate opened, I saw this man smiling. I said, that must be the driver. Let's go. But he reached out his hand, he held onto my shoulder and pulled me back and he said, Jason, that's not the driver, that's my father. And that weekend, father and son spent time with each other, reconciled. In fact, the father became a Christian. But when I spoke to the father said, I never believed that God would forgive me because I've been such a bad father, a bad husband to my wife many years ago. Even though I'm a Christian now, I never believed God has forgiven me. But because this weekend, God sent my son to come all the way here to forgive me, I know God has forgiven me. The father was free as a result of the turning of the heart of the son to the father. And then on the last day, Monday morning, we were supposed to fly back, and Frank was saying, Jason, I have never had a father's blessing. I want my father to bless me. I said, sure, your father is sending us to the airport. Before we leave, ask your father to bless you. And that was what Frank did. We put down the luggage just before we entered the customs gate, and the son looked at the father and said, Dad, can you bless me? Can you give me a father's blessing? That's what the Bible says. Father's blessing is important. Then the father turned towards me and said, Jason, what is a father's blessing? How do I bless my son? The father has never done that before. So I gave him a 2-minute tutorial. I said, a blessing is just say whatever you think is on God's heart for your son. A curse is whatever is on Satan's heart for our children. That's a curse. So when we actually say negative words, we are being used by Satan to release those curses onto our children. So this father understood. He turned back to the son, put 2 hands over him, and started to release blessings over his grandchildren, over the son's marriage, over the son's business, and etc., etc. And at the end, hearts of father turned to the son, hearts of the son turned to the father. This took almost 40, 50 years to happen. And so these are the 7 lessons. I hope that have been helpful, right? 1, 2, 3. Anyway, you will get the slides. I'm going to pass the slides over to the organizing team, and you can have this. Yeah. Thanks for allowing me to even share with you tonight.